This is the story of how I became an unexpected silent partner in my own parents' downfall, a story that started with a text message and ended with a financial fallout that rocked my whole family. The most incredible, heart-stopping moment. It was the sheer, icy silence after my dad texted me a photo of the ocean view from the cruise I paid for and wrote, "Wish you were here, kid. Having a blast. XOXO. Wish I was there. Dad, you know I wasn't invited. You knew I was sitting at home, staring at the bank statement where mathbf $12,000 of my money vanished to give you and mom that blast." But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing I wasn't just not invited, I was deliberately, calculatedly excluded. I still replay that text in my mind, the blinding blue of the Caribbean against the casual betrayal of his words. So, tell me honestly, knowing what I know now, and knowing what I did in response, was I wrong to take it all back and cut them out completely? It all started simply enough, just over a year ago. My parents, bless their hearts, were approaching their 35th wedding anniversary. They'd always talked about a big milestone trip, but money was always tight. My dad, a retired mechanic, and my mom, a part-time librarian, lived comfortably but not luxuriously. Their dream was always an Alaskan or Caribbean cruise, something utterly unattainable on their fixed income. I, on the other hand, had done well for myself. I'm an engineer in my early 30s, and after years of hard work, I was finally in a solid financial position. I remember the night Mom called, her voice thick with that nostalgic, wistful tone. "Oh, honey," she sighed, "your father was just looking at those cruise brochures again. He just keeps sighing about that 10-day Caribbean route. It would be a dream, but we just can't, not even with all the saving." That's when the idea struck me. My parents had sacrificed so much for me. They worked double shifts, drove a beat-up car, and always made sure I had everything I needed for school. This was my chance to give back, to truly thank them. I told Mom to stop worrying about it, that I had a special surprise. I told her to get her passport ready. I spent the next 2 months secretly planning everything. I booked the best suite I could find on the exact 10-day Caribbean cruise they wanted. It was an anniversary package, complete with private dining, spa credits, and a balcony view. The total cost was just over mathbf $12,000. It was a lot, but I didn't flinch. This was for them. When I presented them with the tickets in a fancy box, a complete surprise, their reaction was everything I'd hoped for. Mom burst into tears and hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. Dad, a man of few words, just gripped my shoulder and said, "Son, I don't know what to say. This is the best gift we could ever ask for." They were ecstatic, posting about it on social media, telling everyone they knew. I felt a surge of pure, warm satisfaction. This was it. I had done something truly good. The trip was set for 3 months away, right around their anniversary. Now, here's where the narrative starts to twist into something dark and ugly. A couple of weeks after the initial excitement, I started noticing a subtle shift. Whenever the cruise came up, they would talk around me, not to me. My mom would say things like, "Oh, your Aunt Susan is so jealous about our trip," or Dad would mention he'd invited his brother, Uncle Mike, to meet them at one of the ports. I just assumed they were caught up in their excitement. The big question in my mind was when we would discuss my cabin. See, from the very beginning, when I was booking the trip, I always assumed I was going. Why wouldn't I? I'd just dropped mathbf $12,000 on a family vacation. I imagined the three of us having dinners, sharing laughs on the balcony, and making new memories. I was excited about it, too. I had even quietly started requesting time off work. One Sunday, while having lunch at their house, I finally brought it up. I was charting out dates on my phone calendar. "Okay, so the 15th through the 25th, I said, looking up at them. "I'll make sure my big project is wrapped up by the 14th so I can focus on having fun with you guys." There was a strange, heavy silence. My mom suddenly became intensely interested in folding a napkin, and my dad cleared his throat a couple of times. Finally, my dad spoke, without meeting my eyes. "Oh, son, about that. We talked about it, and well, we decided to make this a special, just the two of us trip. You know, a romantic anniversary getaway. We haven't had one of those in decades." I blinked, trying to process the words. "A romantic getaway?" I asked, my voice flat. "But, I mean, I paid for a full suite. I figured I'd book the room next door, or even just share the suite. It's got a big pull-out sofa, right?" Or did you want me to book another room entirely? I can do that this afternoon. My mom immediately jumped in, her tone a little too sweet, a little too defensive. No, honey, don't worry your head about any more expenses. It's a gift, and we appreciate it so much. But this one's just for us. No kids. It's a second honeymoon, you know. They were smiling, but their eyes held a strange, guarded look. It was a rejection. A polite, sugar-coated, yet very clear rejection. I swallowed the lump in my throat. My mind was racing. $12,000. And I wasn't even going to be there. I felt a cold knot of humiliation and confusion. They were taking my money, but not my company. I mumbled something about it being fine, that I understood, and left shortly after. I was hurt, but I tried to rationalize it. They earned this alone time. I was being selfish. That's what I told myself for the next 2 months as the departure date loomed. The day they left, I was surprisingly upbeat. I drove them to the airport, helped them check their luggage, and wished them a beautiful time. They were bubbly and affectionate, thanking me repeatedly for the trip of a lifetime. I watched them walk away, a single, lonely figure standing at the departure's gate. I drove home and got back to work. Everything was quiet for the first 2 days. Then, on day 3, the text started. My mom sent a photo of a gourmet dinner, saying, "Wish you were here. This food is incredible." My dad sent a picture of the endless turquoise ocean. The texts were frequent, happy, and increasingly felt like a subtle brag. Then came the text I mentioned at the start, the one with the ocean view and the, "Wish you were here, kid. Having a blast. XOXO. That text message broke the dam. I wasn't just not invited. They were rubbing my exclusion in my face with the very luxury my labor had provided. I was staring at the photo, feeling the sting, when a message popped up underneath it. It was from Aunt Susan, Mom's sister. It was a group photo, a selfie from a crowded dinner table. There were my parents, beaming, and next to them, smiling brightly, were Uncle Mike, Aunt Susan, and their 2 kids, my cousins. The caption read, "Family cruise dinner. So glad we could all make it for the anniversary." My stomach dropped. I zoomed in. There were 5 of them. 5 people, in the suite I had paid for. The suite that was supposed to be a romantic getaway, just for the 2 of us. The suite that suddenly had room for 4 additional people. The pull-out sofa I had joked about was clearly being used, and more. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the lie. The calculated, coordinated lie to exclude me while using my money to finance a group trip with the rest of the family. They didn't want a romantic getaway. They wanted a family reunion cruise, and they specifically did not want me there. The humiliation was overwhelming. The betrayal was searing. It was a punch to the gut delivered on a silver platter purchased with my own funds. I immediately called Aunt Susan. She answered on the second ring, the sound of tropical music and distant chatter in the background. "Oh, hi, honey," she chirped. "I'm sorry, I can't talk long, we're heading to the pool deck. We are having the best time. You know, it was so nice of your parents to invite us to share their anniversary suite." Share their anniversary suite. It was all I needed to hear. They hadn't told anyone I paid for it. They presented it as their extravagance, then invited others to fill the space I was supposed to occupy. I hung up the phone, my hand shaking. I walked over to my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up my bank accounts. I started reviewing the transaction details for the cruise. The payment had gone through an independent travel agency specializing in high-end cruises. I was the sole purchaser of the package. I started looking for the fine print, the cancellation policies, the refund clauses. I was operating purely on instinct and a burning need for justice, a need to make them understand the gravity of their deception. I felt like I was watching myself from above, cold and methodical. So that's the situation I was in. I was sitting at my kitchen table, looking at a photo of my parents and extended family enjoying a mathbf $12,000 trip I paid for, knowing they intentionally lied to and excluded me. I knew they were 10 days away from land, sailing the open sea. I had to make a choice: let it go and try to salvage the relationship, or hit them back where it hurts most. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and mathbf comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let the betrayal slide for the sake of family harmony, or would you have fought back? I made my decision. I decided to fight back. I couldn't stomach the idea of them returning home, beaming, ready to continue the charade. I found a clause in the travel agent's contract, a provision allowing the original cardholder to dispute the service or request a refund for extraordinary circumstances before a certain point in the journey, especially if there was evidence of misrepresentation or fraud in the booking, i.e., using a gift for unintended purposes and excluding the benefactor. It was a long shot, but I was determined. I called the travel agency. I was calm, clear, and utterly relentless. I explained that I had purchased the trip as a gift for 3 people, but that 2 beneficiaries had clearly and deliberately excluded the third, and that the travel had essentially been converted into a non-family group trip for 5 people that I was not a part of. The agency was initially resistant, citing the non-refundable nature of the package. But I'm an engineer, and I'm good at finding flaws in a system. I found the loophole. I demanded a chargeback on my card, citing services rendered not aligning with the intent of the purchaser and evidence of contractual misrepresentation regarding the nature of the travel party. It took a day and a half of furious emailing and phone calls, but I was tenacious. Finally, the travel agent relented, seeing that I wasn't going to drop it. They couldn't issue a full refund, but they could issue a credit and freeze the onboard spending account instantly. I said fine. I authorized the chargeback for the principal amount, which meant the travel agency immediately charged the cost back to the cruise line, informing them of a breach of contract by the passengers and a pending refund. They couldn't kick my parents off the ship mid-ocean, but they could make the remainder of the trip financially unviable. The cruise line's response was swift and brutal. I got a call from my mom 4 hours later. It was a panicked, broken, sobbing mess. "What did you do? What did you do?" she wailed. "They locked our key cards. We can't buy anything. They told us the main payment was disputed and we have to pay the remaining balance, over $mathbf $8,000 immediately, or they'll notify the captain, and we'll be confined to our cabin and debarked at the next available port." Dad is furious. I let her talk, listening to the high-pitched panic in her voice. When she paused for breath, I spoke, my voice low and steady. "I paid $mathbf $12,000 for a trip for 3 people to celebrate your anniversary. You turned it into a family reunion for 5 people, and lied to my face so I wouldn't be there. You took my gift, my money, and my goodwill, and you threw it overboard. I just took my money back, Mom. Enjoy the second half of your trip." I hung up. The fallout was nuclear. My parents had to scrape together the remaining balance on their emergency credit cards to avoid the humiliation of being confined to the suite or kicked off the ship in a foreign port. Uncle Mike and Aunt Susan, realizing the true nature of the gift, were furious at my parents for the deception and for being dragged into the chaos. They ended up paying for their own expenses out of pure awkwardness. The cruise, the trip of a lifetime, was ruined. When my parents returned, they didn't call me. They came straight to my house, red-faced and raging. My dad was yelling about my malice and cruelty, and my mom was crying about how I had humiliated them in front of the whole family. I let them say their piece, then calmly showed them the screenshot of the text message, the one with the photo of 5 people at dinner, and the lie about it being a just the 2 of us romantic getaway. "You took my money, lied to me, and deliberately excluded me from a family event I paid for," I said. "You didn't want a gift from your son, you wanted an investment portfolio to fund your vacation. I simply liquidated my investment. You had your fun, now you have the bill." That was the end of the conversation. I asked them to leave, and I haven't spoken to them since. The rest of the family, the ones who were on the cruise, are now fractured, all blaming my parents for the deception. My parents are saddled with a massive credit card debt and a completely destroyed relationship with their son. I have my money back, and most importantly, I have my self-respect back. I still think about that first text, the casual, heartless arrogance of it. They treated me like an ATM, a resource to be used and discarded. What I did was extreme, but it was a proportional response to a fundamental act of betrayal that went beyond money. It was about respect, honesty, and recognizing the value of a relationship. The silence has been deafening, but peaceful. I learned that you can love people, but you can't allow them to violate your trust and dignity repeatedly. So, I've told you the whole story, every shocking detail. I've shared my hurt and my action. $mathbf like this video if you were on my side. $mathbf subscribe for more stories like this from people who fought back. And please, $mathbf share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Do you think I went too far, or did they deserve every bit of it? I'll see you all in the next story.